So I've done my part for King and Country over the past couple of days, keeping up with a few streamers, continuing and trudging through Dragon Age the Veilguard, and well, the game hasn't improved at all whatsoever. In fact, it's continued to stay as cringy as that prologue began. Like, I still can't get over how many times they were using proper nouns, repeating it's a ritual, I need to stop the ritual, Solus is up there, we need to stop him before he does the ritual, otherwise the ritual is gonna, like, shut up, for the love of God, shut up. Nobody has anything insightful to say. It's all inane babble from the same people that deliver the exact same dialogue. It doesn't matter what the character is. It's some short, pathetic girl boss with uptalk whenever she speaks. Some bastardized Kunari that's, just all about, hi, I'm non-binary, and we need to talk about it for 2 to 4 minutes. Like, what are we doing, dude? And that's something. A lot of people will say, oh, the game's just woke and it's bad. But why is it woke? Okay? Can you get under the surface a little bit? Can you take it to the second level? Or why is the game bad? Oh, it's because the mechanics are absolute crap. Like, I've seen Mahler play it a few different times, and yeah, he just presses square and he wins, and he's playing on the hardest difficulty, bro. I've watched Az stream it a couple of different times, and yeah, just out of sheer boredom, he's working in some of the mechanics. I'm not entirely sure what setting. I think he's playing not on the hardest, but the second hardest difficulty, and you're just breezing through the game. Now, I talk about Final Fantasy VII Rebirth all the time, and bro, you slap that shit on easy, and yeah, when I'm just leveling up materia in order to get ready for a hard mode run, which is something that this game, has never even flirted with the idea of, at least from what I've seen so far. Maybe they unlock the ultra nightmare mode. Okay, I doubt it. Mostly because they have a very important story that they want to tell, and they don't want gameplay to get into the way. It's the way that all these activists create their games anyways, but I digress. Like, I did both of my main story playthroughs on dynamic difficulty on Rebirth, and bro, my first time through, it was hard. I got hung up on a few different bosses. Second time through, it was a little bit easier because I knew the pattern, because I've already gone through the hard mode. And the hard mode, if you're not playing correctly, like, it's not quite as unforgiving as there's one way to play it, and you need to play it that way. That's specifically set off to, the combat trials and all that stuff. They are legendarily difficult, and if you don't play exactly the right way, you're going to get absolutely bodied. But it's a fun challenge, and you still get the high-quality gameplay. Oh, yeah, right. And all of the banter that is said between all of your fully realized characters actually adds to the overall story. Okay, if you are doing a quest for the affinity of Barrett or Aerith, they're exploring a part of them. Okay, you're sharing some unique dialogue and having some conversations that are endearing and not superfluous. It's writing that is completely foreign to the West. And it's something that Moon Studios CEO, we're talking about our boy Thomas Mahler, not the content creator, but the, Moon Studios CEO, the guy behind Ori and the Blind Forest and No Rest for the Wicked, that's about to come out. I think it's coming out soon. I'll be interested to see if that's any good. But yeah, describes Dragon Age the Veilguard writing as infantile and terrible. And yeah, that would be... That's a very accurate way of putting it, because yeah, it's all explained to you like you're retarded because they think you're retarded. Because there you have Balara. Okay, the stomach, I get it, but did it really have a... And then you got Tosh, I'm non-binary. That's fantastic. Hey, who ate the last breaded cheese wand? I want to die. The fact that you're in a dark fantasy setting like that, and you're talking about cheese sticks, bro, overcook one of those cheese wands and stick it right in my ear and kill me. It's terrible. Moon Studios CEO Thomas Mahler described the writing in Bioware's recently released The Dragon Age of Veilguard as infantile and terrible. In a recent post on X, Mahler, who is currently developing No Rest for the Wicked, wrote, I grew up in the 80s. Even as a young boy back then, I always thought TV shows were low-effort trash. Especially during that time, like, they were enjoyable. Everybody remembers all of the high-quality sitcoms and, dramas that were coming out during that time. Some of the procedurals and the sitcoms like Cheers that stand the test of time. But nobody remembers a lot of the shit that was just shoveled out there, bro. Because every show back then was trying to be politically correct as possible. I mean, every show was trying to be, every show was about happy families, always trying to paint a perfect picture, always being careful not to talk about anything that could be in the slightest controversial. And The Simpsons and Fresh Prince of Bel-Air dropped, and that stuff suddenly felt radical because every now and then the writers of these shows dared to approach subjects that were real. And yeah, That's the thing about early Simpsons, okay, which I'm also quite the aficionado of. I have all of the DVDs that they ever released. It's like, I'm actually a pretty big Simpsons fan at the end of the day. That's why I always try to throw in a little bit of a reference whenever I can. That's maybe why I find EFAP so endearing. But anyways, they were using the family dynamic to explore a whole bunch of different concepts. And yeah, there were winks and nods and references to pop culture at large, and it was smartly written. There were multiple layers to jokes. Now, you take a look at Zombie Simpsons in a post, I would say everything after the Simpsons movie came out, because that would be after, season 18, which is wild to think about. Like, kind of crazy to think that we're eventually going to get to a point in time, because I think their contract runs through it, where there's going to be more seasons after the release of the Simpsons movie than there was beforehand. Let that one sink in. That's wild. But yeah, so whenever they tried that, it resulted in episodes that were memorable. Yeah, exactly. There are several Fresh Prince episodes that get referenced all the time. One that immediately comes to mind is when, Will Smith actually showed that he could act and started to cry on set after his dad forgot about him and left him, and he was wondering if, he was good enough or what he did to deserve that treatment. It's like, yeah, no, that's very powerful stuff. But yes, I'd like to think it's because the writers managed to put some of their own experiences in there. Yeah, because those writers at that time had actually experienced something. I think we know where he's going with this. And then in the late 90s, The Sopranos dropped. Oh my God, this guy's speaking my language, okay? And suddenly it was clear that TV shows, it didn't have to be trash. Yeah, exactly. There's some people that'll say, oh, no, that's The Wire. Point to other things. Oh, Britain was doing. No, it's The Sopranos, bro. That's the one that set the mold, broke the mold, and nothing has eclipsed it in quality since then. Suck a dick, Game of Thrones aficionados. You had 3 and change good seasons. That's it. The episodic format could actually be used to give even more insight into characters, their trials and tribulations. And then it went on from there. Yeah, we saw more TV shows that delivered excellent drama like The Wire, Breaking Bad, etc., etc. Then he turned his attention to Dragon Age of Veilguard and video games. Looking at games now, it's clear to see that we're apparently moving back to the Stone Age of political correctness. Yup, exactly. And that's something that I guess I'm taking for granted right here because, PC, woke shit, all of that stuff, woke is the natural extrapolation of political correctness, trying to appeal to everybody and then end up adopting all of the positions of a hyper minority. That's what you end up getting. But he actually remembers, back in the 90s, back in the 80s, back in the 90s, yeah, there was already that air, the PMRC, all of the Democrats trying to censor all of the media that was out there. What did you think? That was the evangelical Christians, right? Oh, yeah, right. That legendary Bible thumper, Tipper Gore. Anyways, I just watched a Dragon Age playthrough, and it's quite unfathomable how infantile and terrible the writing is. Everything feels sanitized and dehumanized. I don't know why we're suddenly thinking that this is okay. Your job as a writer is to write about things that are heartfelt, interesting, and true, to draw people into that world that you created, as if this is the best you can come up with. You shouldn't be a writer in the first place. I mean, yeah. And chances are, if the sales and the concurrent player trends are anything to go by, well, they won't be writing for at least Bioware for too much longer. I hate to sound so harsh because I'm sure these people had the best of intentions in mind. No, they didn't. But this is what happens when art is created by amateurs. When we have to walk on eggshells and don't dare to approach difficult subjects, you end up with bland and bad product instead of art. Always approach writing from a human angle first. Draw from your own experiences and dare to approach subjects that might seem risky. Because often magic happens when we're okay with making ourselves vulnerable. I mean, where's the lie in there at all whatsoever? Yeah, write what you know. Okay, that's standard writing advice. But then after that, you can extrapolate onto that. How would the character that you're writing approach said situation? Know your characters first, and then put them in situations that you believe that they would navigate or have the ability to navigate in the future once they go through certain things. That's what makes this weird thing called character arcs, which are apparently also patriarchal at this point in time. Like, there was something that was making the rounds on Twitter a little while back where they were trying to demonize the hero's journey. Like, bro, some of our foundational stories that have stood the test of time, you think you Steven Universe, Rick and Morty consuming dickhead can somehow tell a better story and weave a better narrative than all of the classic films and media of all time? Yeah, okay, you go for that. Mahler is not only one to criticize the game's dialogue and writing. User, Sile put together compilation scenes of the game describing it as cringe and garbage. And yeah, that's why I'm thinking that all of the games and the fact that it only peaked at 89,000 concurrent players, oh, that's actually good. And actually, you take a look at that. I hate games journalists more than manually checking my prostate for cancer and your doctor's Andre the Giant. But it's games like these that just don't have any lasting legacy. Think of how many big budget games come out every single year, and in 2024, how many of them are going to stand the test of time? Black Myth Wukong? Probably. There will be people looking back on that and going, it was pretty good. It was pretty good. Stellar Blade could end up building into something. And then, of course, me personally and a lot of other people out there, Final Fantasy VII Rebirth is top-tier stuff. Like, I see the gameplay of Black Myth Wukong, and it's like, I can see that being engaging. Now, why have over 2 million people concurrently checked that out? Oh, right, because it's playing on this weird thing called an archetypal story, Journey to the West, one of the oldest tales coming out of the East. Wow, big shock on why that one was so successful. Why that one was so universally praised. Oh, but it would have appealed to more people if, the monkey would have came out as non-binary or something like that. But it's morons trying to justify their position and saying, actually, it's a big success, and guys like this, chuds like Thomas Mahler don't know what he's talking about. And that's why you take the advice of journos that are out there, as opposed to veterans of the industry or just people with, just a modicum of common sense. You end up with this. With Dragon Age the Veilguard, will not have any DLC or expansions as Bioware shifts focus to Mass Effect 5, which is, very, very bad. Very bad, because I don't want a fifth Mass Effect. I'm a huge fan of that franchise. Okay, I played the trilogy, and I anticipate playing the trilogy again very, very soon. And Andromeda, I hate it. That might be the only thing that I hate more than games journalists, now that I think about it. The fact that you had this game, you had Veilguard in development for just about 10 years, bro, and you are not following it up with anything for a franchise that is legendary for having DLC. Like, you remember Dragon Age Origins, the first game that made this franchise, had a giant expansion and Awakenings that was basically an entire other game that you put on top of that. Dragon Age 2 had some DLC that made that game tolerable, and I'm pretty sure Inquisition had a gigantic expansion as well. But this one, no, it's going to be done and dusted, okay? Which is very, very telling. Now, okay, for, transparency's sake, my game of the year, Rebirth, it's not going to have any DLC. It's not going to have any expansions like they had with Remake, with Intermission. But that's because everybody who's working on that project is moving ahead with the conclusion of the trilogy because they know exactly where they're going. There aren't any stories or characters that they want to introduce so that you aren't being blindsided, and there aren't any other mechanics that you theoretically think that they'd want to introduce, especially with any of the outlier characters like what they did, including more verticality with Yuffie the first time around. So that one makes sense. But this right here, I think that this is a tacit admission that, we know this is going to suck, and we're just trying to skate over thin ice as quickly as possible. New report details the Bioware is not developing any DLC or expansions for the Veilguard, but will instead turn their entire focus to Mass Effect 5, another project that has been in the tank for how long? Because after Andromeda, that was supposed to kick off an entire trilogy. I do recall that was supposed to be, oh Christ, because I forget, like, the name of the main character was supposed to be, it's kind of like analogous to how Shepard and the reveal of his significance of his name was revealed at the end of the trilogy. It's like the Pilgrim or something. It was stupid, just like that entire goofy ass game. So they're just gonna be rebooting the idea, and who knows? I legitimately don't care, bro. There's nothing Bioware can put out right now that would actually encourage me and make me seek out any of their games. George Yang at Rolling Stone reported on Halloween, Dragon Age of Veilguard now complete. Bioware confirms that there are currently no plans for downloadable expansions. He added the developers' full attention is now shifted entirely to the next Mass Effect as their current project. Subsequent report from Kat Bailey at IGN did detail that Bioware is not completely abandoning the Veilguard following its release, but will support the game with quality of life improvements. Yeah, you're not fixing the dialogue, and a handful of smaller content updates. What, by just adding more genders that Vosh can identify with? Or Tosh, right? Vosh, he would just want to identify as horsekin. Given the game will not have any DLC, it calls into question EA CEO Andrew Wilson's bravado surrounding the game, during a recent earnings call, saying that it has breakout potential. Yeah, because people are going to look back on that dumpster fire and go, you know what? The base game wasn't that great, but once you started to put on all of those additions, it really made it into something great. Like, there's a bunch of second look gems that are out there. Hell, take a look at No Man's Sky. That released as a complete and total dumpster fire, but a few years on, it became a second look success story. It definitely became the comeback kid of the AAA gaming space. Cyberpunk 2077, I've heard different things when it comes to the Phantom Liberty expansion, but it's definitely an improvement over the original. But you just don't offer anything with Veilguard. It's the first iteration in a franchise that was slowly trucking along, and it's the first iteration in 10 years. And you greet fans and newcomers with shit like this, talking about pronouns, quippy dialogue that is not fit for the setting at all whatsoever, a convoluted plot, lackluster gameplay, and boy, we haven't even talked about the pathetic level design. Holy shit. You got a hub world and a bunch of stylized corridors to go down that offer no threat of impediment to your overall journey, because if you fall into a pit, you're just immediately brought back up to the top. It's like there's no stakes in this game. And even if there was, what are you fighting for? A gender ideologue and a dark fantasy story? Yeah, I'll pass, just like most people out there. So with all that said, thank you all very much for the gift of your time. I've been Don Consuelo. I want you to follow your gut and get after it. Take care, everyone.